Today we're going to work on scenery at the Pocatello Subdivision. That's coming right up. Hi, I'm Roy Smith. I want to share with you the work I am doing on scenery at the Pocatello Subdivision today. In fact, sharing the hobby of model railroading is what we do on this channel. So if you're new here, be sure to subscribe and hit that little bell icon so that you don't miss any upcoming episodes. I have already uploaded 7 episodes about the Pocatello Sub on my layout. I will put a link to those episodes down below so that you can go back and take a look at them. But before we get to work, my wife Leonor has just stopped by the train room. I've asked her to say a few words to you.
Hola, soy Leonor, estoy disfrutando los trenes de Roy porque a mí también me gustan los trenes. Bye bye.
I'm such a lucky guy, model trains and a loving Panamanian wife who tolerates my passion for the hobby. What could be better than that? Leonor's going with me to the Steamtown get-together on May 18th. I hope you're also planning to go to Steamtown, where a whole bunch of us will spend the day. Then that night we will visit the Hudson Model Railroad Club. I'll put a link to the Steamtown playlist down below. Check out the playlist and come to this event if you possibly can. It's going to be tons of fun. So today we are going to pick up where we left off in episode 7 of the Pocatello series. You will recall that we were building shallow background scenery in episode 7. I want to finish the background scenery first, and in future episodes I'll do the foreground scenery. Here's the shallow background scenery that I'm working on right now. It has to be shallow because the space between the track and the masonite backdrop is very narrow. I'm using 1/4 inch thick styrofoam to make the shallow 3D scenery. I installed the first layer of styrofoam, which you see here, some time ago. To the left in this scene, you can see the scenery I completed previously. This scene includes multiple layers of an ancient lava flow. The scene on my layout is based on this prototype near Income in southeastern Idaho. This is the scene I'm trying to replicate on my layout. Now, I want to try to create similar scenery on the right or eastern side of the lava flow. As I mentioned in previous videos, you can see the Pocatello Sub crossing over the Evanston Sub at the western end of Echo Canyon on my layout. This is definitely not prototypical. On the prototype, Echo Canyon and the Income scene in Idaho are separated by hundreds of miles. But as always, we have to make compromises and compress just about everything on our layouts. I'm cutting and shaping the styrofoam that I'm using to create this scene on my layout. It's Woodland Scenic's 1/4 inch thick styrofoam. Now I took the same piece of styrofoam you saw a moment ago outside to carve formations into it. As you can see, it's almost paper thin at this point. I just kept cutting and carving until I got it to look as much like real terrain as I could. I've given it a base coat of latex desert yellow paint. Let's see how it fits into the existing scenery. Okay, I'm now applying colors and vegetation to the styrofoam before gluing it permanently in place on the layout. It will be easier to do this off layout, so to speak. I will apply a variety of diluted Woodland Scenic's earth tone pigments. I hope to replicate the colors of the terrain in the area that I'm modeling. I'm using the darker colors first, starting with diluted black pigment. I especially want to apply this color in the cracks and crevices of the rocks. You can see it running down through the cracks and crevices, which is exactly what I want it to do. It doesn't look so great at first, but stay with me and watch how the color of the terrain begins to look more and more realistic as I apply subsequent colors. Now I'm applying diluted stone gray. Again, see how it runs down through the crevices. This is very important in trying to create realistic terrain. It creates the illusion of natural erosion. Now I'm applying raw umber. I would also like to apply burnt umber, but I ran out of it. Watered down burnt umber is one of my favorite colors to use in the area I'm modeling. Finally, yellow ochre. I really like this color. It lightens up the scene and is perfect for the area I'm modeling. It suggests that sunlight is striking the scene. I just keep applying the colors until I'm happy with the results. I can go back and apply more of the colors that I applied previously to get the results I'm looking for. I don't really have to wait for each color to dry before I can apply the next color. Every so often I apply water from this cup to the terrain feature. It dilutes the pigments even more and makes them blend together. All right, now I'm going to apply some materials to add texture to the scene. I start by applying full-strength white glue where I want to add these texture materials. The first texture material that I'm applying is Scenic Express Fine Soil and Dirt. I like to sift these texture materials on with my fingertips. Since I'm working on this terrain feature off layout, so to speak, I can incline it, making it easier to apply the texture materials. Next, I'm using fine gray ballast as a texture material, especially near the bottom of the terrain feature. Fine gray ballast works well not only for ballasting my track, but also in scenery projects like this for adding texture to the scene. Okay, in the interest of time, I'm going to jump ahead a little. I've sifted on some fine buff-colored ballast for texture, especially near the top of the terrain feature. And I've begun to add various shades of green and yellow ground cover. While I'm waiting for the ground covers to dry, I'm going back to the original scene to add some earth tone pigments to that part of the existing scenery, which will not be covered by the new scenery, as you will see. Back at the new scenery, the glue for the ground covers has dried, so I'm going to go ahead and plant shrubs. I plant various colors of shrubs, but I especially like olive green for the area I'm modeling. Again, I'm using full-strength white glue. Tweezers help me plant the shrubs where I want them, especially along the ridges and ledges. Sorry about my big hand getting in the way of the camera. It's time to glue the terrain feature in place. I've applied a generous coat of white glue to the back of it. It's a tight fit, but I think it's going to work. I'm using foam nails to hold it in place until the glue dries. I've glued this little stack of styrofoam together. In a moment I will be carving it to look like a rock formation. Mainly the formation will serve as a view block for where the tracks disappear under the scenic divider to descend the western helix. Well, I made a little mistake and now I'm fixing it. I didn't test the track clearance before gluing the shallow terrain feature in place. The long passenger cars on my excursion train can pass through here okay, but the cab of the steam locomotive overhangs the track so much that it hits the terrain feature as it goes through this curve. So I've carved away some of the terrain and will make it look like a rock cut, which is a realistic solution to this problem. As you see here, 844 and the excursion passenger cars now pass through easily and without hitting the scenery. I'm applying a very thin coat of spackling paste into which I will carve striations for the rock cut. It may be a little difficult to see, but here is the rock cut after painting it. Please note that I have not yet painted or ballasted the track. And on this side of the cut, you can see a hole caused by the separation in levels of plywood. Obviously, I need to close this hole. To close the hole, I'm using a method that I have successfully used elsewhere on the layout. I cover the hole with masking tape, as you see here, and in a moment I will apply spackling paste on top of the masking tape. This is what it looks like after applying the spackling paste, carving striations in it, and painting it to look like the other side of the rock cut. This next step is very important. As you can see, I've put a mock-up background photo onto the scenic divider. I say mock-up because right now I printed it on regular paper for test fitting and cutting. I will soon print it again on photographic paper, which is much better than regular printing paper. The photo backdrop comes from a Google Street View in Echo, Utah. The mock-up is temporarily taped in place. I will remove all of the blue sky in the photo in the final printed copy and will apply it permanently to the backdrop with spray adhesive. You saw this rock formation earlier as a stack of white styrofoam. Now I have carved and painted it. It represents 3D scenery that hopefully matches the photo backdrop. Again, its main purpose is to provide a view block of the hole under the scenic divider where trains begin to descend down the western helix to staging. As you can see, I've made abutments for both ends of the bridge. This black line shows roughly where the terrain will cover the lower part of the abutment. Can you guess what I made the abutments from? Styrene? Nope. Guess again. That's right, I made the abutments from styrofoam and popsicle sticks and painted them a concrete color. I guess I will never be a real model railroader because I don't really like working with styrene very much. Obviously, the abutment on the right needs to be glued in place so that it doesn't fall over. They both need to be glued in place. I've made some progress on this scene, but it's still not done. I need to make Echo Canyon Road disappear out of sight behind the canyon cliffs. I need to fill in that gap under the track probably using plaster cloth. And I've got to do all of this foreground scenery. Since I've used Woodland Scenic's risers here, I can easily install more bridges in the scene or add below track level scenery. You'll see that in future episodes. I enjoy doing scenery work. I think most of us in the hobby do. I certainly have a lot more of it to do in my layout. I hope you will join me as I continue to make progress in future episodes. Again, if you're new here, remember to subscribe and hit that little bell icon so that you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. As always, feel free to post your comments down below and hit the thumbs up button if you like this video. Well, thanks for watching. Until next time, happy railroading. I'm Roy Smith, and I will see you again very soon.